resonated not just here in Texas, but around the country. And my colleagues are going to say a little bit about how it resonated with them.
I spent a year lobbying for choice in South Dakota. Of the 4 lobbyists who were lobbying on choice that year in South Dakota, I was the only woman. Senator Van De Putte's words resonated with me because I often wondered, at what point must I yield my own voice for men to speak for me?
I'm not sure if you know, but in North Carolina recently, the Republican-based legislature passed a law basically limiting a woman's right to good health care, to smart health care, and to safe health care, under the guise of a motorcycle law. The first part of the piece of legislation said that she has to wear a motorcycle helmet. I've heard of safe sex. I think that pushes it a little too far.
Senator Van De Putte did something that needed to be done. She told the Texas legislature that it wasn't okay. She said that you need to treat everyone equally. You need to give everyone respect. You need to listen to everyone. She drove up to Austin from burying her father, and she buried State Bill 5.
Yeah!
I'm proud to present the senator with the Ann Richards Profile and Courage Award. Thank you, Senator Van De Putte, for being bold enough to raise your hand and your voice so that we could all be heard.
recognition, and especially because this is named after a woman that I knew and adored and respected, and she forever has a place not only in the Texas history books, but in our hearts as well. Thank you. And thank you for coming to San Antonio. You are actually in my district. I represent I know that our great mayor and good-looking, bright, just absolutely fantastic, a rising political star, my mayor, Julian Castro, his brother, his twin, Congressman Castro, from San Antonio. We all grew up in the same neighborhood. Now they grew up, I mean, I'm their mother's age. And it is so exciting to have you here in our city. And, you know, Texas has a little of everything. We're a little bit from the South. And so while you're here, you're probably going to hear people say, yes, ma'am, and no, sir, and please and thank you. And the mayor likes to say that if somebody sneezes, there's going to be 30 people that say, God bless you. And that's what happens in our restaurants and in our hotels. And then we're a little bit of the West, you know, that rugged West where we value individualism and kind of pull yourself up from your own bootstraps mentality. But we always know when neighbor needs to help neighbor. And then you're in San Antonio. I mean, I hope you've had, those of you that are above 21, have had the margaritas and the Mexican food. So we are such a part of the Latino culture, and that's embedded in us. This is San Antonio, and we have a proud tradition, but it's like mi casa, su casa. Very humble, very welcoming. And so I guess what I really, really wanted to tell you tonight was bienvenidos, y'all. Because I'm thankful to have you here in my as the rest of us here. My good friend Juan Sepulveda, who spoke, who's really heading up a great democratic effort for us at the national level, is from San Antonio. Linda Chavez Thompson, of course, here our great leader, and so many other leaders that have come from this area. But what I look at right now is our future. And I was sitting in the back before, and so I knew you were young. I have 6 kids between the ages of 24 and 33. Okay, I didn't use my time wisely in the 80s. They are at this age group, and I just didn't realize, I know you're dedicated, I know you're passionate, and I know you're engaged. I just didn't know how good looking you were. You are really a great force for us and our future. So what I'm here to tell you and to talk to you and to say thank you about is using your voice and looking at the future of what our country needs. You know, I was so blessed to be the co-chair, one of the co-chairs of the 2008 Democratic National Convention in Denver. And when we were in Carolina in 12, I was there, but I got to see a little bit of the coverage on TV at night, you know, because, okay, let's face it, you're in this room, you're a political junkie too, right? You turn it on and you're looking and you're trying to recapture those moments. And I do have to tell you that I did look at the Republican convention. I wanted to see what the movement was about. And there was such a contrast between who was in the room in the Republican National Convention and the Democratic Convention. You looked at the Democratic Convention, number one, it was very diverse. It was all ethnicities or races. There was all ages. We had our youngest at 18 and our oldest, delegate was like 94. Huge diversity. And there were people there representing every bit of the fabric of this great country. And everybody was energized, and they were smiling and laughing and hugging each other and just joyous. It was so wonderful to be part of that and to see it. And then I kind of reflected on what the Republican convention was. And they looked kind of all the same. And they were really old. And they looked angry. And they looked mad. They looked really upset. And sometimes confused. And I was noting that to my son, Henry, who's almost 30. And I said, it looks like, and by the way, I've been a pharmacist for almost 34 years, and I told him, they look like some of the patients in the pharmacy that I see every day, And he said, Mom, you're on the west side of San Antonio. You see, you're in the barrio. You don't see people like that. And I said, no. When people come up and they're really constipated and they're and he started laughing, and I made light of it, and I said, yeah, and he says, Mom, that's so true, because they're just full of it. And that's why the contrast was so interesting and wonderful. But let me tell you what's at stake, and why we're so proud that you are here in San Antonio, and why we're proud that you are going to get the best information possible about networking and about using your circle of influence once you get back home. It's just that too much is at stake. When I stood up on the night of June the 25th in the Texas legislature, it was because I was exceedingly frustrated, and because I was disrespected.
So were we.
And what's at stake for you in your generation? I said, at what point are they going to recognize a female senator over the male colleagues in the movement? Because there was this egregious reproductive health bill that said that, you know, the proponents of the bill said it was really going to help women, that it was going to make things safe for them at a time in their lives when they were making critical decisions about their reproductive health in their lives. When in fact, it was the opposite. And my dad had died the week before. He was 82. He was a proud Korean War veteran. And he died in a horrific accident. And that was the day the last day of that filibuster, that we were able to bury him. He's buried at Fort Sam Houston, the National Cemetery as a veteran. And the month before in May, I had been honored by my colleagues by being Senate Pro Tem, and so I got to be governor for a day. And we had this big celebration in Austin. And my family was there, and our friends, and thousands of people from San Antonio came to take part in the day's festivities. And I wanted to recognize my dad, because he was the type of guy who really empowered his daughters. You see, when I was growing up and I was little, somebody would say, "Oh, is this your daughter?" He said, "This is my daughter, Leticia." And they would say, "Oh, what a pretty little girl." And the first thing coming out of his mouth, he said, "And she's the smartest girl in her class." Or instead of and he said, "Hey, es nada más que de la gente de su clase." Now, I was not the most intelligent one. But because he said it, I thought I might be. And because I thought I might be, I studied a lot. Because my dad said it, right? He said it, so I studied and studied. Because he said it, and the power. And then the other thing my dad did, you can tell I do not have the Barbie doll figure. Never did. And for a girl growing up in the late 50s and 60s, when our 9th grade math class was home economics, and when girls only wore dresses to school, I just didn't fit that little pretty cheerleader mold. But I knew that I had other things. I had my brain. And let's face it, I was kind of big. I had really big thighs. Still do. Okay, don't clap. But what my dad recognized in me is that if you don't fit that mold, guess what you can do with big thighs? You can run. You can do the standing broad jump. You can do the running broad jump. You can be on the track team. And so I learned that what others would call not so great a trait became my symbol of power and strength. That I could run faster and I could jump those hurdles, and it became the asset instead of the liability. My dad respected me. And so when he died, I remembered that day at the Texas Capitol when I recognized him and he stood up and he was blowing kisses at me, and I remember my dad stood for me. Always. And my sisters. And I thought, they're assaulting Wendy Davis. They had just called her on her second point of order. I had no intention of going back to the Capitol. But then a picture came up as we were gathered with our family. It was a picture of my dad standing up for me. And I thought, if the man who loved me stood up for me, then I must go and stand up for my sisters. And how wonderful it was to see her strength. This tiny, petite, little blonde who who is wickedly smart with that Harvard Law degree. Herself a teenage mom, pulling herself up, going to community college, then graduating from TCU, and then Harvard Law School. Tiny petite, standing up in those pink tennis shoes saying, you will not disrespect women. Is it don't let other people define you. Do not let those in control, the political power, and particularly if you are in states where there are Republican majority, don't let them disrespect you. At what point are they going to understand that our young people deserve a future that has a life of dignity? I mean, how long did it take them to try to solve the college debt loan crisis, right? Until they were ashamed. Those Republicans were holding that up. And at what point are we going to understand that women need no help? We just need to be given the equal opportunity on equal pay for equal work. And ladies, thank you for all of your social media and your tweets around the country. We had no idea that when that Texas Capitol exploded with the voices of the people, that there were hundreds of thousands of you looking online, and that you kept telling that story. And for a brief moment, we ended in victory, not because Wendy stood up, or not because I cried out, but because the people spoke. The people said, you will not do this. Summer in a hot Texas town is at what point are you going to act so that your generation is not disrespected? You go home. You use the passion that you have. You use the organizing skills that you have. You use everything in your personal arsenal. And I say arsenal because guess what? It's a battle. And you go home and you win elections. Because winning feels good, but it is because not just winning feels good, it's that when you elect the candidates that then become the office holders, the decision making, when they vote on policy that strengthens our future, rather than trying to go back 40 years on reproductive health, go back 30 years on Voting Rights Act, go back 20 years on employment rights, and finally recognize, for once in this country, we've got some progressive states, but until our entire country recognizes that you can be a gay soldier now and not be discriminated against. You go back home and you use it. Use your voice. Use everything you got. And guess what? If you do, this country's going to be just fine. Thank you. Thank you.